interviews, they talked about being a part of a team, being collaborative within their teams, the team meetings, that they worked with practitioners, as well as being collaborative with their own colleagues. They began to also experience observations where they were able to see professional behavior and performance in the practitioners that they worked with, and as well as I believe that their reflection grew over time regarding the teaching practice. They were able to talk about some things on a different level than I think they would be able to if they had not had that experience. Talked about diversity in the school, and also talked about school data and how that was important and what their role was in making an impact with that. And I thought this was an important quote and something that really caught my eye and made me think a little bit more about their ability to be reflective, was that one student said, "I realized that what I was doing could literally change the educational walk of a child." And I thought that was an impact statement. An additional finding, in addition to the fact that students also saw themselves as teachers as well as learners, I believe that they also began to see teachers as professionals, not just the practitioners at the school where they were working, but just in general. One candidate said that she remembered her teachers, and in the past she had felt like teachers felt like they were in a competition with each other, and they worked in isolation and were kind of in it for themselves. But as she was able to be in a K-12 setting with teachers over time, she went on to say that teachers are focused on kids and learning. They share and they work together. And so she began to have a different view of teachers, and both of the students that I spoke with said that they believed that teachers were professionals, and they saw them engaged in meetings, working collaboratively, researching, looking at data, and speaking and thinking professionally and reflectively about their practice. And so I believe that because the students began to see teachers as professionals, by extension, I think the candidates also began to think of themselves as professionals, because they mentioned in their interviews some of the same kinds of practices that the teachers were engaged in, that they were engaged in as well. And so I believe that over time, they also thought of themselves as professionals. There's a piece of research regarding partnerships that talks about students who are prepared in partnership settings to be teachers are generally more focused on children and students than candidates that are not prepared in partnerships. And this was just a word frequency chart that I ran through a data scanning tool, and I thought it was interesting that our students also were very focused on students, children, and this kind of also painted a big picture for me. I ran this chart before I really began looking at the data, and I thought it was interesting how all of these pieces tied together to kind of tell a story about the partnership experience as a whole, because it was talking about the teaching, the students, the school, the classes, their learning, and things that they got to do and what they learned. And so I liked looking at this, and it also was encouraging and validating as far as the research goes that our students were very student focused as well in their thinking. Overall, two big ideas, just in reflecting back over the interviews that I was able to think about. One, the candidates' perceptions of their own growth within the partnership advanced from the learner to the teacher to the professional by the end of their experience. And then secondly, which is an important piece for me because I think that my larger goal and longer term goal will be to look at the specific elements that are necessary for this kind of transformation for students to move from the learner to the professional within a partnership. And so these are some of those elements that I believe and that the students describe as the reason for that kind of transformation. And I think that's on your handout as well. But these are the elements that they mentioned, and you can see that some of those are particular, very specific type assignments within the partnership setting, and some are more general. But just the immersion in the school culture, being situated on a K-12 campus in the same teacher's classroom over a period of time was important. The methods courses taught on site. The relationship building activities, both students mentioned repeatedly that was important, and I think that those relationships were able to be built because of those kinds of activities, car duty, cafeteria duty, hall duty, real teacher kinds of responsibilities. Curriculum committee membership, where students were on a curriculum committee alongside practitioners. Leadership team opportunities, special event work, working with practitioners, attending team meetings, conducting and presenting action research, presenting and attending professional development, managing a morning intervention program, and the collaboration between the practitioners on the K-12 side and the professors at the university side. So, where do we go from here? Why is all of this important? I think it's important that we continue to promote K-12 university partnerships as a real viable alternative in undergraduate teacher ed, and also to continue to develop a model that would be appropriate for our situation and for others in similar situations, to look at and to take care to include the elements that were described within this study. Any questions?
Well, I have a question or a comment. On your first slide, where you quoted the NCTQ, that's Kate Walsh, you know, and I do know that, I think if, I know maybe through your research you've read other things, but I know there's been a lot of controversy around her research procedures and protocols that she uses that's questionable. So I was wondering on that first slide where it says like 200,000 are unprepared, that's based on her research that's questionable. And it's the eyes of some higher ed.
True.
I will say Alabama case in point, and all of our universities refused to cooperate with her. And other states have taken that position too. So I just wondered, did you want to, is there other organizations that are looking at this too?
At K-12 university partnerships?
No, at effectiveness of teacher prep.
Oh, absolutely.
That you could quote outside of her.
Yes, and I think that...
because she has such questionable use of resources.
Sure, and the slide that mentioned, and maybe it's on your handout as well, but the slide that mentioned the educational research that supports the K-12 university partnerships is fairly extensive. You know, it goes back quite a bit to the 90s with Goodlad, you know, started kind of looking at professional development schools, and they kind of looked a little different. And since then, I think we've looked at K-12 partnerships in lots of different lights. In that, sometimes we call like the relationship that we have with student teaching a partnership, and then the master's kinds of programs and any kind of residency programs. But there's a lot of research, a lot of educational research, I think from well-respected researchers that do support the partnership model. And I think why I think it's so important, and I think why we should continue to look at that, is because of the advantages that we know that candidates have, regardless of other statistics. I think the distinct advantages that we know that candidates have that are prepared within a K-12 partnership compared to candidates that are not.
And I guess what I was just saying is, I don't know that 200,000 quoting
is accurate.
Based on the controversy around that her whole organization.
might be, just based on her own methods. But that's, that organization feels like it's
Right, so I didn't know if there were other organizations that have similar research that would back her up or not.
that I don't know.
Okay. Now, I know we're not on your committee, but what I'm following here, I mean, is this what you're gonna replicate with more people? Is that what you're doing? Those
More,
9 questions.
yeah, more participants that are candidates,
Right,
and then, professors, practitioners,
right,
department chair,
right, right.
assistant principal.
Okay. So, well, I think we need to have the decisive model.
I agree.
There was not, I said we need to create.
There's not. There's a lot of research about why partnerships fail or how to create them and some general guidelines. But as far as exactly how to set up a successful partnership in an undergraduate program, and these elements need to be present to cause these things to happen, these behaviors, there's just not one. And so
I
that's
think we just got working.
kind of what we're looking at.
That's good to me. That's all I have.
Good, okay, thank you. Thanks, ladies.